Hi, this is Reinhard from EverydaySystems.com. It's been a long time since my last segment, but I have a great excuse, even better than the birth of a child, which I used last time. Because the podcast for which I've been doing these segments, the Health Hacks podcast, has gone bust. It no longer exists. No more sponsor dollars, and more importantly, since that never amounted to much, no more motivating deadlines. So while you may be thinking, what a slacker, it's been 3 months and this self-improvement guy can't get his act together, I would argue that the fact that I'm doing anything at all is a sign of tremendous virtue. Alright. Because there is still, even as I speak, some small danger that I'm not in fact going to get this segment out, I'm going to keep it nice and short just to get the ball rolling again. My nice and short topic for today is, what is the best piece of exercise equipment money can buy? You may think you know the answer to this already, or at least the answer I'm going to give you, but you're probably wrong, because it's not a sledgehammer, or even a sledgehammer with a sweater wrapped around it. It's a timer. Not any fancy timer, just a regular, simple, I'd say digital timer, like you can buy at Radio Shack for $10-15. There's a button to set the number of minutes and another button to start the countdown. When it gets to the end, it beeps. Why is a timer useful? Because the hardest part of any exercise routine is not the weight or physical effort. The hardest part is making the time. It's been my experience that there are two things you need to do to make the time. 1, make your routine sufficiently fun so that you'll want to do it. And 2, sharply define and limit the amount of time that your routine will take, and what days you're supposed to take this time. Shovel Glove addresses both these concerns. It's fun as hell, and you're only supposed to do it for 14 minutes every N day. N day is everyday system speak for a normal day or a non-S day. That is a weekday. Holidays and weekends you get off. The fun as hell part of Shovel Glove is what appeals to most people. But I think it's actually less important than the other part, defining the time, which is why I'm going to focus on it today. Fun is great and it's important, but it isn't enough. You also need discipline, and time is the best dimension in which to apply this discipline. In a way, the fun of Shovel Glove is just the bait to get you hooked on the discipline of 14 minutes every N day. Because the truth is, I'm convinced that if you did pretty much any form of exercise for 14 minutes every N day, you'd be in great shape. Just try doing 14 minutes of non-stop, simple body weight exercises like push-ups and squats, if you don't believe me. Another reason to focus on the timing is that the fun of Shovel Glove is difficult to translate to other forms of exercise. Sure, you can be inspired by it to look for fun in other routines, but you can't just drop the idea of fun onto an existing routine and make it so. You can't just say, fun is good. My Bowflex machine is going to be fun from now on. Now, I'd love it if everyone traded in their Bowflex machines and gym memberships and whatnot for sledgehammers. But I understand that for various reasons, that isn't universally going to happen. But still, even so, Shovel Glove might have something valuable for you, because you can use the timing part of Shovel Glove no matter what exercise you're doing. In the best tradition of software engineering, it's a reusable component. You can rip it out and reapply it to almost any other form of exercise without going anywhere near a sledgehammer. The timing component has 2 parts, as I mentioned before: the days on which you do the routine and the duration of the routine. So 14 minutes, schedulistically insignificant time, and N days. There's an obvious logic to doing your routine every N day and skipping S days. It maps well to the calendar and to your schedule, but more importantly, it's very clear. You never have to wonder, do I have to exercise today? 14 is, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, an obviously arbitrary number of minutes, but it's a powerfully arbitrary number. The blatancy of its arbitrariness reminds you of how ridiculous your excuses to get around it will be. It's a form of what I call enlightened self-mockery. 14 minutes is not a lot of time. Unless your name is Jack Bauer, you have time to do this. Now, this fact would be just as true with 15 minutes, but it wouldn't be nearly as striking. You'd forget it and allow yourself to be impressed by sober-seeming excuses. 14 is like the drum roll after a joke. You need a timer to do this properly because you can't really guesstimate 14 minutes, right? If you're going to insist on this comical level of precision, you really ought to measure it precisely. I have to confess, I haven't always done this. After a few months of shovel glove, I got a very good sense of how long my routine would take, and I often did it without using a timer. And that usually works fine, until massive stresses like having a second child came along. Then I, 5 years plus into this habit, founder zeal and all, find a timer indispensable. There are two other reasons, besides properly delivered enlightened self-mockery, that a timer is helpful. One, not only does it nudge you to do something, but it discourages you from doing too much. When the timer stops, so should you, even if you feel like doing more. This may seem counterintuitive. Why not keep going? You're in bonus territory, right? The reason you should stop is that human nature is such that if you make unusually heroic efforts one day, you'll feel like you have the right to slack, and maybe even do nothing at all the next day. Enough of that, and your habit will go to pieces. So throttle your energy, spread it out. You want to focus on a consistent minimum of compliance, putting one more link on the chain of habit. Never risk that for the sake of one day's heroic efforts. Nothing you gain in one day could be worth that risk. To no less than 14 minutes, but no more. Let the minimum equal the maximum. The last reason the timer is helpful is when you're feeling the opposite of heroic, when you barely want to do anything at all. The timer is like a contract that, yes, this is really all that's required. You can go slow, whatever, in 14 minutes it'll be over. Over the last few months we've had a second child, I've written a book, and my day job has been as busy as ever. If it hadn't been for the timer and the habit cal, which I discussed in previous podcasts, there is no way I could have stayed motivated to keep on shovel gloving with close to 100% end-day compliance, as I've done. That turned out to be a little longer than I had planned. I'll refrain from making grand promises about future podcasts, but I have at least a dozen ideas for segments already, so fingers crossed. Thanks for listening.